Time is now 10 a.m., and I will call the meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. I'm Bega Chairperson and Norma Hutcheson, and this meeting is being held at the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability at 1030 15th Street Northwest, Suite 700 West, and virtually. Joining me today for this meeting are board members Charles Nottingham, Felice Smith, and Melissa Tucker. And together, the four of us constitute a quorum for this meeting. Since it was first posted, there have been no changes to the agenda. So I ask board members, please take a moment to review the agenda, and then I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
To adopt the agenda. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the agenda is adopted. Before us today are the January 2025 draft meeting minutes. Please take a minute to review the minutes, and then we can consider the approval of the meeting minutes from January.
I'll offer the motion to approve the January meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board consider the approval of the January 2025 meeting minutes. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes, and hearing no nays, the January 2025 minutes are approved. Next, we will hear a report from the Office of Open Government. Director Allen, please proceed.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of Open Government, and I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government. Our mission is to ensure that all persons receive full and complete information concerning the affairs of the District of Columbia government and the actions of its officials. Since the last board meeting, OOG has continued its work to ensure that the District of Columbia government's operations are transparent, open to the public, and promote civic engagement. To that end, OOG has enforced the Open Meetings Act, advised on the Freedom of Information Act requirements, and has provided training on those transparency laws. OOG proudly served as advocates for open and transparent government. I will begin with Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act advice rendered by the office since the last board meeting. OOG issued 2 advisory opinions. The first is an Open Meetings Act advisory opinion, Calvin Coolidge Senior High School's Local School Advisory Team, OOG-2024-001. On January 31st, I issued this advisory opinion opining that while there was lack of sufficient evidence of a meeting in violation of the OMA, and that although several of the allegations asserted were not within the scope of my authority under the OMA, as a result of OOG's independent investigation, OOG determined that the Coolidge LSAT was in violation of the provision of the Meetings Act requirement, then determined that the Coolidge LSAT must take training on the Open Meetings Act within 60 days. A copy of the advisory opinion has been added to Dropbox. The second is a FOIA advisory opinion, the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel 00OOG-2024-006-AO. On February 4th, I issued this advisory opinion in response to a request concerning the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel's backlog of administrative appeals under DC FOIA. The statute currently allots the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel only 10 days from initial submission to decide appeals. And at the end of fiscal year 2024, over 1,000 decisions were overdue for publication. The Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel cleared its backlog in January 2025 on the verge of our preparation to issue this advisory opinion. As a remedy, I strongly recommend amending legislation to enlarge the currently inadequate processing time of administrative appeals, which, as the board knows, is only 10 days. In addition, I recommend that the Office of Open Government should serve as the DC FOIA Ombudsman similar to the the federal government's Office of Government Information Services. I conclude similarly to our advisory opinion issued in 2022 that the MOLC should ensure that at the same time an opinion is signed and released to the requesters and custodians, it affirmatively posts the opinion for public viewing. A copy of this advisory opinion has been added to Dropbox, and for the public, all of our advisory opinions are published on open-dc.gov. Next is informal advice. Since the last board meeting, OOG has responded informally via email, telephone, or teleconference to requests for assistance as follows: 3 requests for Open Meetings Act advice, 3 requests for FOIA advice, and 14 requests for technical assistance with open-dc.gov. Meeting monitoring is next. OOG staff attends public bodies meetings in person and remotely to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act. They also inspect public bodies' websites and OOG central meeting calendar for public meeting notices and records. OOG's attorneys provide legal advice on OMA compliance and take corrective action if necessary. Since the last board meeting, OOG staff attended 16 public body meetings. As a result of the monitoring, 3 corrective measures were communicated. The public bodies failed to do the following: 1, provide a correct meeting location, and 2, cite the OMA regulatory statement. OOG's training and outreach activity is as follows. First, Open Meetings Act monthly training. On January 23rd, I presented an Open Meetings Act training to DC public bodies. The basic training provided an overview of the provisions of the OMA as well as best practices for public bodies' compliance with the OMA. This training was the first in OOG's new monthly training series, which the schedule has been published. OOG staff also attended this training virtually. District of Columbia Bar's Pro Bono Small Business Clinic. On January 15th, Attorney Anthony J. Skirbo participated in the DC Bar Pro Bono Small Business Clinic. DC Bar is working alongside AI responsibly and ethically continuing legal education course. On February 4th, I, along with Attorney Skirbo, attended the DC Bar's training session working alongside AI responsibly and ethically. This training session was facilitated by Octo's General Counsel Todd Smith and Erica Stillbauer of the DC Office of the Attorney General. The CLE course provided an overview of AI technology and the legal framework for its adoption. It also provided an overview of the ethical issues raised by the use and adoption of AI technology in legal practice. Bega's record retention schedule meeting with the DC Office of Public Records Archivist. On January 30th, Bega's Public Records Officer, Attorney Joan Lelma, attended a meeting with the DC Office of Public Record Archivist, William Branch, to discuss possible revisions to Bega's retention schedule. OOG's investigation of an alleged violation of the Open Meetings Act. On January 31st, I, along with Chief Counsel Neal and Attorney Scober, met with the Board of Elections regarding allegations of possible Open Meetings Act violations that had occurred when the agency conducted post-election audits. After confirming the nature of the proceeding and discovering additional details, OOG is satisfied that the Board of Elections audit was an agency function and not a meeting subject to the Open Meetings Act. The litigation and legislative update is next. Litigation, Leslie Richards versus DC Finance and Treasury, case number 24CV-0034, DC Court of Appeals, and case number 2021-CA003762B in DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this pro se case in which the plaintiff appellant sought information about a disbursement. The Superior Court dismissed the complaint because the plaintiff failed to properly serve the district nor state a claim upon which relief could be granted. The requester appealed. On July 8th, 2024, the district filed a motion for summary affirmance of the Superior Court's dismissal. The plaintiff appellant filed a response to the district motions on July 15th, 2024. On September 30th, 2024, the court denied the district motion for summary affirmance, filing the motion as a brief instead. A motion for oral arguments was filed on January 10th. A copy of the motion has been placed in Dropbox. The court denied the appellant's motion for oral arguments on January 21st. The next hearing is scheduled for February 19th. OOG staff will continue to monitor. Phillips v. District of Columbia, case number 122CV00277 in the DC District Court. Excuse me, as I have previously reported on this case in which Amy Phillips alleged a federal Section 1983 action against the Metropolitan Police Department, alleging it maintains a watch list concerning certain DC FOIA requesters. The court referred this case to a magistrate judge for mediation, which is ongoing. The parties filed joint status reports to the court on January 22nd and January 29th. A further joint status report is due February 28th. Copies of the joint status reports have been added to Dropbox, and OOG will continue to monitor. Washington Post Company, LLC versus the District of Columbia, case number 2023-CVZ0488 in the DC Court of Appeals, case number 2021-CA002114B in DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this case in which the Washington Post sued the district under DC FOIA for certain records related to the Capitol insurrection. The Superior Court granted the district's motion for summary judgment and the Post appealed. I last reported on this case in December 2023. The parties briefed this matter until June of 2024, at which point the matter was awaiting calendaring. On November 14th, 2024, the appellee District of Columbia filed a consent motion to continue oral argument. The court granted the district's motion and directed the clerk to schedule the matter on the regular calendar as a special sitting as soon as the calendar permits. On December 30th, 2024, a calendar notice was sent. However, there was no date attached. On January 24th, 2025, Ashwin Patek entered his appearance on behalf of the district. On that same date, the court ordered the parties to be prepared to discuss in oral arguments what, if any, impact the recent communications, pardons, and dismissals would have on this appeal. Oral arguments are set for February 6, 2025, and OOG staff will continue to monitor this case. Next is legislation, Virtual Open Meetings Act, Authority Extension Temporary Amendment Act of 2024. On February 4th, 2025, the Council of the District of Columbia voted unanimously during its legislative meeting on the Virtual Open Meetings Authority Extension Emergency Declaration Resolution of 2025, PR 26-0052, and the Virtual Open Meetings Authority Extension Temporary Amendment Act of 2025, B 26-0088, that were introduced by Chairman Mendelson to prevent the expiration on March 1st, 2025 of the Virtual Open Meetings Act Authority Extension Temporary Amendment of 2024. Copies of the bills have been placed in Dropbox. I will conclude this month's report with administrative matters. Performance oversight hearing on February 5th, 2025, Chairperson Hutcheson, Director Cooks, and I presented information and testimony regarding the agency's performance before the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety. I highlighted OOG's FY24 and FY25 achievements within its existing programs, the establishment of new programs, and OOG's goals for FY25. We also answered questions from Committee Chairperson Brooke Pinto and Councilmember Wendell Felder. A copy of my public testimony regarding the Office of Open Government is in Dropbox. Performance oversight hearing, written testimony concerning DC FOIA. On February 4th, I provided Councilmember Anita Bonds with written testimony to become part of the January 29th, 2025 hearing record of the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor's performance oversight hearing of the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel. My testimony concerned the FOIA appeals process in the district, and it highlighted the need to amend legislation to enlarge the currently inadequate processing time of administrative appeals. And I also advocated for OOG to officially serve as the DC FOIA Ombudsman, like the federal government's Office of Information Services. A copy of my written testimony has been placed in Dropbox, and for the public, my testimony is also available online on www.open-dc.gov. This concludes the Office of Open Government February 6, 2025 report. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Director Allen. Are there any questions for Director Allen? Go ahead.
I have just a comment and a quick question. My comment was how much I support your proposal that you and your staff would become the ombudsman for FOIA purposes. I think that would serve a critical need both for agencies and the public. And I think, quite frankly, you guys would do a terrific job of it. So I wanted to say that. And my question was about the OMA investigation that you conducted into the Board of Elections. Was that in response to the concerns that Ms. Brazil raised last
yes.
month? Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, no other questions. The next on the agenda is a report from the Director of the Office of Government Ethics, Ashley Cooks. Director Cooks, please.
Chairperson Hutcheson, members of the board. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of Government Ethics, and I'm pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Government Ethics, OGE. First is an update on the status of OGE operations. The information reported today regarding OGE's cases will not reflect any status changes that may occur because of actions taken by the board during today's meeting. For open investigations by status, we have a grand total of 56 matters. Open undocketed matters, we have a grand total of 8. Pending state investigations by status, we have 37 matters that are closed pending collection. 1 matter stayed pending DC Superior Court case. 4 matters stayed for OIG investigation. 3 matters stayed for U.S. District Court case, for a grand total of 45. For regulatory matters by status, we have 35 matters that are closed pending collection. 58 matters that are open, for a grand total of 93. Again, we currently have 56 open investigations and 8 matters that are stayed. The number of open preliminary and formal investigations includes 11 new matters. The investigative team resolved 9 investigations since the board last met. This total does not reflect the number of complaints that were dismissed for a lack of jurisdiction. Next is an update on training and outreach. First, professional development trainings attended by staff. There were no trainings attended by staff since the last board meeting. For trainings conducted by staff, since the last board meeting, OGE conducted 6 training sessions, a new employee orientation ethics segment, the January quarterly board and commissions training, PS ethics counselor training, a new FDS filer training, and FDS updates training at the Office of the City Administrator's Agency Operations meeting, and the January brown bag session. On Monday, January 27th, Senior Board Attorney Lynn Tran presented the January Ethics Counselor brown bag session, which was a negotiated dispositions roundup of about the last 6 months of recent dispositions. She presented to approximately 24 ethics counselors. A copy of the presentation was placed in a Dropbox. During the month of January, 30 employees completed training using PeopleSoft, and 7 employees were added to the learning management system. OGE is in the final stages of updating the financial disclosure statement course on the learning management system, which will be available in time for the new filing season. We are also working on an outside employment training course that will educate employees on the restrictions that apply when engaging in outside employment. Next is an update on outreach. Next week, OGE will publish the 7th issue of its bi-monthly newsletter, Ethically Speaking. Next, an update on advisory opinions and advice. First, informal advice. OGE's legal staff provided advice for approximately 17 ethics inquiries, which is 9 less than the 26 reported at the January board meeting. This number does not include responses we have provided to questions regarding the lobbyist and FDS e-filing systems. For formal advisory opinions, OGE issued 1 advisory in January that is currently in its comment period. The advisory opinion, Lobbyist Registration and Reporting, provides guidance for lobbyists on the filing requirements and prohibited activities, and informs district government employees of their obligations regarding lobbyists. A copy was placed in Dropbox for your review. OGE also has another advisory opinion in the works on widely attended gatherings. Next is an update on legislation and rulemaking. There's only one update there, that is the Budget Support Act proposal. OGE is in the process of finalizing a Budget Support Act proposal, which will amend the lobbyist section of the Ethics Act by repealing Section 1-1162.28A4 which excludes 501c4 organizations from registering as lobbying entities, and adding language that requires those entities to register in the same manner as 501c3 organizations. This exemption for 501c4 organizations alone is rare compared to other jurisdictions. Most jurisdictions, including the Federal Lobbying Disclosure Program, do not differentiate between nonprofit organizations and other organizations that meet the lobbying registration requirements. The legislative history is absent a justification for excluding 501c4 organizations from registering as lobbyists. While public policy and the nature of 501c4 entities can justify a fee reduction in the same manner as it applies to other nonprofit organizations, Bega has not identified a practical or public policy purpose for completely exempting 501c4 entities from registration. Next is an update on OGE administrative matters, vacancies. OGE interviewed and has made an offer on the Human Resources Specialist vacancy. The Attorney Advisor vacancy closed, and OGE is now reviewing resumes. We have made an offer for the Administrative Officer vacancy, and it is in the final stages of processing by the Department of Human Resources. Also, the office has posted the vacancy announcement for its legal fellow position. Performance oversight hearing. On yesterday, Chairperson Hutcheson, Director Allen, and I testified in our agency's performance oversight hearing before the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. I provided testimony about OGE's performance and achievements in fiscal years 2024 and 2025. Specifically, I highlighted OGE's advice and education activities, successful completion of the 2024 financial disclosure statement season, continued efforts in investigation and enforcement, and effective administration of the lobbyist program. I also provided information on OGE's initiatives for FY25, which includes an outside employment training initiative, amending the lobbyist section of the Ethics Act, and the passage of the Comprehensive Code of Conduct. Next is an update on financial disclosure, FDS. Pursuant to DC Official Code Sections 1-1162.24 and 1-1162.25, public officials and certain government employees must file a financial disclosure statement as a means of transparency and to prevent engaging in conduct that violates the Financial Conflict of Interest statute. Bega is responsible for ensuring that employees and public officials who meet the statutory requirement file their annual financial disclosure statement. We are gearing up for the 2025 financial disclosure season. On January 24th, as I previously mentioned, I presented information about the FDS process and new developments at the Office of the City Administrator's Agency Operations meeting. On January 30th, 2025, Supervisory Attorney Asia Stewart Mitchell sent out the agency head memo officially announcing the beginning of the financial disclosure season for 2025. A mandatory Ethics Counselor FDS training was held on February 4th, and the remaining sessions will take place on February 12th and February 19th, 2025. On February 5th, OGE held an FDS training for new filers, and the remaining sessions will take place on February 14th and March 14th, 2025. Next is an update on lobbying registration and reporting, LRR. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.27A, a person who receives compensation or expends funds in an amount of $250 or more in any 3 consecutive calendar month period for lobbying shall register with the Director of Government Ethics and pay the required registration fee. According to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.30, each registrant shall file quarterly reports concerning the registrant's lobbying activities during the previous quarter. On December 20th, the LRR team sent notices to all active lobbyists and their clients that their fourth quarter 2024 activity reports and calendar year 2025 registration renewals were due on or before January 15, 2025. In response to the notice, 410 lobbyists renewed or filed new registrations for 2025 and filed 409 activity reports. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.29B2, the Director of Government Ethics shall publish in the DC Register on or before February 15th a summary of all lobbyist registrations. This summary is scheduled to be published in the DC Register's February 14, 2025 issue. On January 13, 2025, a handful of reporting entities called and filed support tickets seeking assistance as the e-filing system was sending codes saying page not found or redirecting filers to pay fees that had already been paid. This continued through January 15th. The situation was escalated to Octo's development team. As of January 31st, the Octo team has been examining the issue to pinpoint what needs to be corrected. And last is an update on public investigations. The first one is 24-0010F, Henry Marcellus Willis. This is a formal investigation based on a complaint that the respondent, former employee of the University of the District of Columbia, used a government purchase card to make unauthorized purchases. Respondent worked at UDC for 5 years and was responsible for handling procurement for the university. The board approved a notice of violation, which contains assertions that respondent violated DPM section 1800.3G by using public office for private gain, and DPM section 1808.1 by failing to protect and conserve government property. A public hearing is scheduled for March 6th through the 7th, 2025. The second public matter is 24-0016F Henry Trayon White. This is a formal investigation based on the criminal indictment in which respondent, council member for Ward 8, allegedly agreed to receive $156,000 in bribes and accepted $35,000 in exchange from a business owner. Accepted $35,000 in cash from a business owner in exchange for assisting with renewing the company's violence interruption contracts with the district government. Respondent was indicted on 1 count of bribery. This matter is stayed pending the outcome of the criminal case, which is scheduled for trial on January 12, 2026. And the last matter is 25-0002 Henry Trayon, 002F Henry Trayon White. This is a formal investigation based on allegations that the respondent, council member for Ward 8, violated the code of conduct. Specifically, this office is investigating whether the respondent filed full and complete public financial disclosure statements pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.24 and whether he violated any other rules of the council's code of conduct that are separate from the ongoing criminal case. Thank you. This concludes the Office of Government Ethics, February 6, 2025 report. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Cooks. Are there any questions for Director Cook?
Madam Chair, just one follow-up. Thank you for the report on the 501c4s being exempt from lobbying disclosure. I have to confess, I didn't fully realize that before today. That sounds like a loophole you could drive a Mack truck through. 501c4s are very often where the tax authorities tell you to go if you are a political organization. That's how you should organize to advance your cause. So it's literally all over this town. There are tax exempt 501c4s who have a primary purpose of trying to influence legislation, and God bless them. That's their American right to do. But they're absolutely lobbying, and they should absolutely be disclosing if we care at all about transparency. Some of them are the most sophisticated. And I've been lobbied by them in my government career, and they're some of the most sophisticated, well-financed organizations you've ever encountered. The fact that they wouldn't be disclosing while everybody else who's lobbying is required to, just to me, this doesn't make any sense. But I welcome being educated if I'm misinterpreting this.
No, absolutely right. I 100% agree with you that we know that there are entities at the council probably right now that are 501c4s who are lobbying, and they do not have the same requirements as other lobbyists. So we have spoken to Councilmember Bonds about this, and she is in agreement with the passage of the amendment. And we've spoken with Councilmember Pinto about it on yesterday. So we 100% agree, and I think everything that you said was very accurate about 501c4s.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Director Cooks. Next on the agenda is an opportunity for members of the public in attendance at this meeting to make a comment at this time. Are there any comments? Well, if there are no comments from the public, we will proceed to the next item on the agenda. This is our executive or closed session. This is to discuss ongoing confidential investigations pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B14, to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to preserve the attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B4A, to discuss personnel matters including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal, or resignation of government appointees or employees pursuant to Official Code DC Section 2-575B10, to deliberate on a decision in which the Ethics Board will exercise quasi-judicial functions pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B13, and to discuss contract negotiation strategies pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B2. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we enter into executive session. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. No nays. Hearing none, we are now in executive session. The time is now 10:33. We will return to this meeting after the conclusion of the executive session to report out on any matters decided, finish any other business, and adjourn the meeting. Thank you. The time is now 11:04, and we are back on the record. In its closed session, the board approved an amended notice of violation and an amended notice of hearing in matter in caption 25-0010-F in Ray Marcellus Willis. It is now 11:04, and this concludes the February 2025 meeting of the DC Board of Ethics and Government Accountability. The next meeting will be held here at the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability at 1030 15th Street Northwest, Suite 700 West, and virtually on March 6, 2025 at 10 a.m. Thank you. We're adjourned.